Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to inform you that overnight I received confirmation that the former Afghan National Army Sergeant accused of murdering 3 Australian soldiers in August 2012 is in custody in Afghanistan. Former Sergeant Hekmatullah was apprehended by the Inter-Services Intelligence, or ISI, in Pakistan and subsequently deported to Afghanistan through the efforts of the Afghan National Directorate of Security and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We now expect him to face trial for the murder of Lance Corporal Stjepan Milosevic, Sapper James Martin and Private Robert Poate during an insider attack at Patrol Base Wahab in Afghanistan. 2 other Australian soldiers were also wounded in this cowardly attack. We have spoken to the fallen soldiers' families to tell them about Hekmatullah's capture. This was bittersweet news for the families. On one hand, there is a great sense of relief, but it will not change history. This news comes at a particularly difficult time for the families so close to the anniversary of the event. I extend my deepest sympathy to them, and we will continue to support them as they come to terms with this latest development. And I ask also that you respect the family's right to privacy as they do so. While there is a legal process to follow, the families have expressed their sincere gratitude for those Australians who have worked diligently and relentlessly to ensure the man accused of murdering these 3 Australians face justice. I echo their thanks not only to those ADF members involved, but to those from other agencies who have provided crucial support, particularly the Australian Secret Intelligence Service and the Defence Intelligence Organisation, with the assistance of the Australian Signals Directorate and the Australian Geospatial Intelligence Organisation. ASIS and DIO have worked closely with ISI and NDS over the past 6 months to facilitate Hekmatullah's detention and deportation. We greatly appreciate their efforts to date and will continue to cooperate with Afghan authorities as they prosecute the allegations against Hekmatullah under Afghan law. Noting the international dimension and the legal sensitivities associated with this matter, there are some aspects of the case that I can't discuss publicly. However, to give you some background, in February this year, Pakistani authorities formally advised Australia that Hekmatullah was in custody in Pakistan. Since that time, the Pakistani government has been working to establish an appropriate transfer arrangement to return Hekmatullah to Afghanistan. While of course we have an interest in the case, obviously the transfer arrangements were a matter for the Pakistani and Afghan governments. As a result, it would have been inappropriate and possibly detrimental for Defence to disclose Hekmatullah's apprehension until the transfer to Afghanistan authorities was complete. Hekmatullah's capture draws a line under the 4 insider attacks on Australian personnel. Those responsible for the deaths of 7 Australian soldiers and who wounded another 10 have been captured or killed and no longer pose a threat to our people. We have been quite determined in our efforts to pursue those who have murdered and wounded our people, and we will continue to cooperate with Afghan authorities as they prosecute the case for justice for these Australians. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you give us any more information about the circumstances of his apprehension and whether Australian officials, intelligence officials or law enforcement officials were actually involved in gathering the information to apprehend him?
This was a cooperative activity between us and the Pakistan authorities where we were able to provide some information that they were able to act on.
General, you've said that that ASIS and the Australian Signals Directorate were, and you thanked them for their help in this matter. That seems to suggest that maybe Australian authorities were involved in some way in tracking him electronically. Is that the case? Can you give some details on that?
Well, I think you're aware of some of the capabilities that those organisations and institutions bring into the field. So we used what we had available in Afghanistan at the time, provided information to the Pakistanis which they were able to act on.
And also, I assume facing trial in Afghanistan, or I'm not clear. Does that mean that he could face the death penalty if found guilty of murder?
That's a possibility under Afghan law. Yes.
Do you expect ADF personnel to appear as witnesses?
We're not quite sure how the court case or that process will work forward at the present time, but we will provide evidence as requested.
Can you tell us how long he was in Pakistan before he was apprehended, and what he was doing and where he was apprehended?
Really don't want to go too far into that information other than to say that we were advised of his apprehension in February this year.
So you say that the apprehension was in February. What was the delay then in getting him handed over to Afghan officials? Why was it such a lengthy process?
This is, if you look at the relationships that exist in the region, I think there was a number of issues being played through in Pakistan as well. They had elections, other activities going on with the Afghan government. I think they were just working their way through to find both a process for this handover to occur and when would be the appropriate time.
So did the families find out now or 6 months or back in February?
Now, today.
Did they voice any frustration about that wait?
No, not at all.
Has the coroner asked for any more information from defence about whether the incident in August last year?
No, we've responded to all these requests for information to date, and I don't think there's been any since our last, probably since the provision of the inquiry officer's report.
Sounds like he's been in custody for a while. In that time, has he given Pakistani authorities any indication as to why he did what he did?
No, we don't have any statements of that intent or motive at the moment.
How was he apprehended? Was there a raid, or was...
I think that's a question best left for the Pakistan authorities about how they do their business.
The active protection force at some Australian bases, is that being slashed, and is that for budgetary reasons?
No, any reductions or changes to security status at our bases is done after a proper physical security assessment, and it's not based on budget reductions.
Protection forces, is that being slashed?
Well, if I told you what we're doing with our security, it would not be a security program. So at the moment, we're just working through what those assessments mean to us and how we would align our security arrangements.
Can you give us your latest information about Hekmatullah's involvement with the Taliban? I think it's always been speculated that he was a member of the Taliban or that he was involved. Can you give us your latest information?
And I think we're still in the same place. It is speculation.
You said that there were sensitivities surrounding elections in Pakistan and whatnot. Was there a concern that if word got out that he'd been captured in Pakistan, that maybe his deportation might be prevented, might be stopped from happening, given there are some sympathies for the Taliban in Pakistan?
Yeah, I think that's really an issue for both the Afghan and the Pakistani authorities, because they had to work through their process for about how this would achieve. We were not involved in that process.
When is the trial expected to start? And
Well,
can you walk us through the sort of process?
Sorry, he's only just been received into custody today, so we'll now need to engage with Afghan authorities to find out what that sequence will be. So giving you a timeline, I've got no idea at the moment.
Is it your understanding, though, that would be you said Afghan law earlier, it's not a military trial?
Again, I don't know how that will play out, but it will be conducted under Afghan law. Whether that's within the military or in the civil jurisdiction, we're not sure yet.
Will Australian intelligence officers or the Defence Department seek to access him before the trial to interview him in some way to find out exactly why he did what he did?
Yeah, we'll engage with the Afghans just to see how the procedures will play out in the future and what access we might be able to have. Yes.
You said it was bittersweet news for the families. Can you give us a bit more detail about how they responded to the information today?
I didn't personally speak to them, so I can't really report back what their words were, but I think in a general sense, I suppose it's another step for them in the journey. It raises the whole event again for them in their minds, and yes, I think in one sense pleased to see this person brought to justice, but it reopens it again for them, so all those emotions I think would be in play.
They haven't expressed any interest in viewing the trial in any way? Or?
No, we've not had those conversations. Okay, thank you very much.